Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new KWCE Reads featuring myself, GrayShot151, as host. Since we are having some slight difficulties on the technical side,
Kaiju is dead!
it is a sad day. We were
Top 10
racing.
saddest anime dub.
Yes. But yeah, no, congratulations, DVJ, on the promotion.
Yeah,
Fuck that guy.
And comically enough, for some reason, the insurance money was also written in your name. For some reason, this doesn't make any sense why Kaiju X would do that. In any case, let's just get to the match itself.
I mean, it is a pretty hefty sum.
Yes.
$2 an Oreo.
Half an Oreo.
Oh, right.
But yes, no, we have KWC number 8, Colonel Glenn Manning and Nancy Archer versus Rhedosaurus. The arena is New York City. We'll just go for as far as everyone reads, and then you can just skip to the next person. So, in the secluded military base known as Area 51, far beyond the barbed wire fences and into the mountains of the Nevada desert, two people rested against one of the large mountains, staring into the starry night sky. From afar, they looked like normal people, a man and a woman. However, a much closer look showed that they were far from normal. Giants that they were, humans who once lived a normal life before experiencing an event that would change those lives forever. Nancy Archer, a woman who encountered a being from outer space, was forced to adopt a new lifestyle. Life as she knew it crumbled around her, being backstabbed by her husband and ending the lives of the people she despised. The military soon got their hands on her and managed to keep her secure in a large containment area. There she recollected her thoughts and became mellow once again. 1 year before Nancy's encounter with the extraterrestrial, the military's very own Colonel Glenn Manning was at a test site for the world's first plutonium bomb detonation right in the Nevada desert. He and his men were ordered to stay in the trenches. However, a civilian plane crashed by the test site and Manning went to save the pilot inside. The plutonium bomb detonated, vaporizing anything outside the trenches except for Colonel Glenn. From then on, he became the giant he was today, captured by the military and forced to regain his bearings.
Oh, well, I would like to go for a couple gallons of gold beer right about now. How about it, Manny? Let's make a special request.
Observed happily. Glenn continued to stare into the sky, looking at the moon shining down on the gargantuan Toho. He then answered sternly.
No amount of beer in the world can take my mind off the fact that I have nothing now except a monster.
Glenn noted, shifting his gaze. Nancy turns her head to face Glenn.
I didn't want to drink to forget. I wanted to have a little fun. Wink, wink. Two giants under the moon drinking to our heart's content.
She
It
replied,
gives me a raging boner.
not wanting to argue with Manning. Those tend not to end well. And also, we have to make note, this is very much 50 style dialogue. So.
Even if I said yes, do you honestly believe they would give it to us? Especially with your drinking problem and your raging boners? Not a chance. Here we.
And besides, I haven't had a drop in ages. It's a double meaning. It's terrible.
Nancy humorously responded, smiling at Glenn.
The only thing worse than a giant is a tipsy one, and one with a rager.
Manning chuckled.
I do admit water gets old after a couple months. At least the food's decent.
As the two continued to chatter, a jeep made its way to the duo. There a soldier stepped out and used a megaphone to project his voice to be heard. Nancy and Glenn ended their conversation and looked down on the small man.
Well, hello there, handsome. What can we do for you?
Nancy asked in a flirtatious manner and waving her hand.
What do you want?
Manning replied coldly. The young blonde soldier's cheeks turned red in embarrassment at Nancy's compliment, but also felt pressured as if Manning's glare was crushing him.
Ma'am, sir, the general would like for you to report back to base. He says he has a mission for you. Woo!
Nagoda said while he looked on at the giants. Okay, the two look at each other and follow the jeep deeper into the desert. Once in position, the two stand side by side each other with the soldier behind them. Carefully, the wind blows the sand away, revealing a large circular platform that descends slowly. Archer and the Manning remain still, their grin faces looking forward. Lower and lower the three descend, lights flickering for moments at a time. The soldier sneaked peeks up Nancy's bed sheet skirt every chance he got. As they reached the... Okay.
You like what you see?
As they reached the bottom, a large door slid open. Light enveloped the dim elevator, and the two giants made way for the vehicle as it drove past them. The young soldier's face completely red as he drove forward. Workers staying clear of the vehicle as they do their work. The two giants step onto a platform that begins to move them down a huge corridor. Everyone stops to admire the enormous man and woman standing before them. People on balconies look up from their papers as they stare in amazement, and those on the higher balconies were lucky to make eye contact with Glenn and Nancy. As they travel onward, a small plane hovered close to Glenn Manning, mildly annoyed by the whirring sound. The man piloting the miniature drone was a general with a silver handlebar mustache and silver hair slicked backwards.
Wow! Hello, Colonel. What do you think of my new anti-gravity personal aircraft? Amazing what a trade with aliens could get you. Wow!
The general cheerfully stated. Nancy was very impressed with the hovering mini-plane, looking at the nifty neon blue rings pulsating from the bottom.
Holy cow! Looks like that furniture has arrived early. This is absolutely fantastic, General.
Archer chirped happily. The general smiles.
Wow, thank you, Miss Archer. Cheer up, Manny. You look like someone's fat in your oversized cereal bowl. Wow.
Glenn growls, but seems to have forgotten that people could hear him plenty of yards away. Catching his mistake, he immediately goes silent. The general stares the man down, not intimidated by Manning's big amber eyes. Making a right turn, another door opens, revealing two humongous airplanes. The two giants' eyes widen, looking at each other. Nancy asked the general hesitantly.
Sir, are we being released? Double meaning. Well, not exactly. Fuck, wrong voice. The general retorts. Wow, let me tell you.
Oh, sorry.
A few years ago, a large marine dinosaur spotted in the waters near New York. That was to kill a beast for feed. The only thing we succeeded in doing was releasing an ancient virus from within the monster's blood. A virus humanity has no way of fighting. Those unlucky to catch the virus, there was no chance of survival. Wow, what a risk for cancer. Why are you telling us this?
Nancy spoke softly as her hands covered her mouth.
I think I see what you want us to do. You want us to try to put it down. A helicopter can't lay hands on such a beast, but we can. Better than touching that hag.
Glenn and Manning said, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. Pass, by the way.
The general turned towards the planes and began speaking again.
Wow, over the years, our scientists cracked the code and created a vacation for said virus. We gave you the shot last month in preparation for this day. You two are safe, as well as people around the world. The President of the United States has requested for your help, and you two are going to give it to him. What do you say?
Glenn was contemplating the idea of saving lives. That was the reason he became a hulking monster in the first place. The reason he lost his fiancée and career in the military. Now he was confined to the same place that ruined his life, and he grew bitter and depressed with every passing day. That was until Nancy came into his life. Although she had not been blasted by plutonium, whatever happened that night caused her to grow rapidly, much like himself. She too lost many people, her glamorous life coming to a screeching halt, something they conversed to each other about often. When the weeks flew by, they felt one another build each other up again. She wasn't perfect, but it felt good to have her by his side, even when they argued over trivial things. It felt like it was just him and her against the world. As soon as the general finished his question, thoughts began to race through her mind too. Finding a living dinosaur? She couldn't deal with a stray cat, let alone a towering titan. She started quaking, but remembered that she was no ordinary woman. She glared at the floor, remembering that she had strength that only her and Glenn possessed. Perhaps this was a chance at redemption, saving many lives to make up for the ones she took. Nancy looked up at the general with intense eyes, refusing to let her fear take control.
Count me in, General. I'll do what I can to help those poor, sexy people.
Nancy said with a powerful voice.
It wasn't me powerful.
Belt
I'll stop this monster, sir, for New York and every soul in it because I'm fucking bored and I don't want to hang out with this bitch anymore.
Glenn said proudly.
Wow. In that case, let's load you two up and ship you off to New York.
The people of New York were going about their daily lives. People eating in cafes, driving taxis, and of course, working like there was no tomorrow. However, it seems that a force from a time long forgotten was about to rear its ugly head, bringing New York to its knees. Sharp strikes break through the water as they slice through the waves toward New York. Boats are pushed effortlessly as large brownish green scales flame up atop of the harbor, pulling itself out the waters. Rhedosaurus rears its head into the midday sky and unleashes a hellacious roar that caused the people near the area to freeze in terror. Scouting the area, Rhedosaurus drools at the prospect of dining on humans. Seeing some prime candidates turn a corner, the beast gives chase like a raging crocodile, shaking the ground with each step. The general static radio voice is heard through each plane. Archer and Manning staring at the ceiling.
Wow. Our scientists have given this fossil the name Rhedosaurus. Don't show this thing any mercy. It must be taken out at all costs. Understand? And we only called it that because it's from a movie. Yes, sir.
Both giants barked that they were shown photos of.
Wow. Good. Be careful, you two. I might still need you in case another threat rises. God forbid. Meaning I need you guys for another match. Wow.
The general hangs up, leaving only the sound of the plane to fill the duo's ears.
Okay, sir. We are overhead New York City. We are going to drop you two off in the ocean. It's safer that way, and fuck, I just realized I had your voice too.
The pilot said to Manning as he prepared to open the hatch.
Can't even drop me off on land. I sure do love being a damn giant. Fuck, why is my voice changing so? Shit.
The colonel mumbled with sarcasm, irritation as his voice changed.
It's like they're all being voiced by some shitty voice actor.
Soon after, Manning is sucked. I'm not going to get that. Out the plane, and land feet first into the waves like a bullet, reaching the bottom and propelling himself through the lukewarm water. Pulling himself out if the waves, he breathes in the salty air, thinking to himself that maybe killing the monster will rid him of his frustrations, knowing that he had saved lives like he had originally intended to do.
I'll help you get rid of those frustrations if you catch the drift.
Not too far away, Glenn sees Nancy come out of the waves, holding onto her clothes as she sits atop the harbor. Her hair had lost some of its curly fluff, but managed to save most of it.
I'm glad she could focus on her hair in this time of saving people. Also, I'm glad the military could give these people something other than bed sheets to, fight in.
They're quite nice. I sure hope I can find someone who treats me like them.
Looking around, she spots Manning and jogs towards him. The two meet halfway and begin their game plan.
All causing billions of dollars in property damage.
Screaming crowds of hundreds are drowned out by an even louder roar. The giants look down at the large street, the golden sunset shining in their eyes. Glenn runs to the harbor and pulls a freight boat out of the water and drags it along the ground. Nancy follows Glenn's lead and the two make off with their boat. Rhedosaurus wastes no time in turning the defenseless people of New York into quick snacks. Purring with delight, the beast prepares for another swoop of his mouth to crunch on meat and bone. The monster's concentration is broken as a sharp pain shoots through its back. Roaring with a jolt of surprise, the dinosaur turns around and stops Glenning, quickly backing up, holding the boat in his hand like a baseball bat. Confused at the sight of a large human, Rhedosaurus gives off a warning to leave him alone. Glenn doesn't budge. Rhedosaurus, taking Manning up on the challenge, charges the big man on all fours, ready to tear into the colonel path.
Come on, you oversized gecko, which I have no idea what the hell you are, but I'm just gonna call you that. Make my day.
Once the reptilian was in range, Glenn swung his boat and smacked Rhedosaurus directly in the temple. Staggering around, the big lizard stared, dumbfounded at Manning. Snarling at the oversized man, Rhedosaurus raises itself on its hind legs, wanting to pin Glenn to the asphalt. Acting swiftly, the colonel, is that how you say it? Colonel?
Colonel.
Colonel, okay. The colonel dashes for the large dinosaur and thrusts the boat into its gut. Using all his might, he manages to topple Rhedosaurus, planting him firmly on its back. Manning beats Rhedosaurus like a piñata, large welts forming along the belly of the beast, putting as much force into the last blow. Glenn Manning strikes the head of the monster, the boat snapping in half. Rhedosaurus groans in irritation as he felt the discomfort along his belly, flipping himself over. His golden eyes glare at Manning with intense hate. Now he was determined not only kill this being, but also make a meal out of him. Glenn throws the remains of the boat at the snout of the living fossil, bouncing off and hitting the pavement with a thud. Glenn puts his fists up and preps himself for combat, ready to use his military training to deal with the monster. Rhedosaurus rises to his hind legs again, swinging his right arm in an attempt to claw off Manning's face. Ducking, the swing misses, and the colonel strikes a large welt with his right fist. Rhedosaurus, groaning in frustration and agony. Using that to his advantage, Glenn beats the dinosaur with a flurry of fists, making sure to strike each welt, each contact point bursting with the creature's blood. Going for a left swipe, Rhedosaurus brings down his clawed hand. Seeing the incoming strike, Glenn grabs onto the reptilian's wrist and slows down the attack. But now, unable to counter the next one, a right claw tears into Manning's back. The giant yells in pain, retorting with a firm kick to the monster's stomach with all of his might. Rhedosaurus stumbles back, landing on all fours, waiting for his foe's next move. A few blocks away, Nancy watched as Glenn tangled with the beast. Nancy saw the opening she was waiting for and threw a handful of cars at Rhedosaurus, bouncing off his hide. He shifts his gaze at Archer, with her boat bat ready for the offensive. Rhedosaurus, recalling his last beating with the bat from moments ago, let out a blood-curdling scream that stops Archer in her tracks. Taking the hesitation as an opportunity, the dinosaur crawls to her, but Nancy stood her ground, lucky that the plan was working. Rhedosaurus had taken its attention off of Manning, and was now fixated on Nancy. Glenn swiftly scales the living fossil and wraps his arms around the neck. Rhedosaurus retaliates by slashing at Manning, drawing blood. Gritting his teeth and pumped with adrenaline, Manning temporarily relies on his primal instincts and bites into the loose skin around the beast's neck. Roaring in discomfort, the dinosaur claws into Manning's arm again, this time coming dangerously close to the bone. Contaminated blood started oozing out of the neck as Manning continued to bite deeper into the wound. Nancy closes the gap between her and bashes the skull of the reptilian repeatedly, staying clear if the sharp claws, thinking of a way to be free of its assailants. Rhedosaurus rolls onto his side, allowing his weight to freely crush the man, suffocating him.
Oh no, Glenn, if you die, who's gonna give me smush smush?
Nancy cried as she saw Glenn disappear beneath the mountain of flesh that was Rhedosaurus. Rolling over Glenn, Rhedosaurus makes it back to his feet, trying to regain its bearings. Nancy relentlessly beats Rhedosaurus with her boat, blood trickling down the monster's head, until the makeshift bat finally snaps. Using her fist, she strikes the face of the beast, trying to lure it into attacking her head-on. The dinosaur had a different plan, however. Snapping forward, Rhedosaurus twists his head and clamps down onto Nancy's side, sharp teeth sinking into her flesh, blood spurting out of her wounds. Her giant body was tough and difficult to tear apart, but the agony was initially overwhelming. Instinctively, she bashes and pummels Rhedosaurus in the snout with her bare hands. Not working in her favor, Nancy stretches her hand out, hoping to gouge out the right eye of the deep sea beast. Slipping her feminine fingers between the armored eyelids and gelatinous eye, she shoves it deep into its eye socket, stabbing it with her nails. With a series of animal-like yelps, he releases his grip on the giant woman. She backs up a bit and clutches her sides. A terrible wound that hurt like hell, but she could still fight. She scans to see Glenn rising back to his feet, seeing the horrible gashes he was inflicted with. Meeting together, the two watched Rhedosaurus put his right claw down, showing that blood was leaking from the eye that Nancy punctured with her nails, blinding the right side of the dinosaur's face. Glenn gets into his stance.
How are you feeling, Nancy?
Stares down Rhedosaurus.
I feel better. My wounds are starting to heal.
Nancy replied as she skirt.
Grab his tail. His mouth.
Glenn responded.
You got it, honey pie. Please be careful. Ah, fuck. I hope that's it.
Nancy replied as she strikes a fighting pose. Rhedosaurus roars and charges once again. Nancy jumps out of the way, allowing Glenn to charge Rhedosaurus head-on. The amazing, colossal man swings a heavy right uppercut into the jaw of Rhedosaurus, and then follows up with a quick jab to its snout with his left fist. The enormous reptile was about to bite down before it felt a tug on his tail. Nancy, calling upon every ounce of strength she had, hollers her battle cry and lifts the massive dinosaur off the ground, spinning him around as if she was doing the hammer throw in the Olympics. Manning, watching in awe, impressed by the feats of his frailer partner spinning the 50,000-ton monster. Finally, letting her grip go, Rhedosaurus groans as he flies into a nearby building, the structure crumbling and burying the monstrosity. Nancy stood staring at the pile, panting and sweating, with veins bulging from her tan arms. She looked on as and began laughing in amazement at what she had just accomplished. Her laughing ceased when a snouted head let loose an awful roar. Slowly, Rhedosaurus clawed his way out of the rubble. Glenn looked at the monster, amazed at its stubborn tenacity and persistence. He stood beside Nancy, and the two prepared for the inevitable. Rhedosaurus detects a hefty tanker truck and picks it up with his maw, teeth puncturing the tanker, seeping oil through the container. Rhedosaurus stares the duo down and tosses the whole vehicle at them.
Oh god, he's part Michael Bay.
We just need the Linkin Park music.
Glenn reflexively pushes Nancy out of the way, scraping against other nearby structure, as Manning takes the brunt of the explosion. Wow, Kaiju X is at fault again. If the explosion...
It was so good, he forgot to edit it.
Unable to react in time, his whole upper body goes in flames. The blast spurs a massive fire around him, even burning Nancy's back. Side. Ow! Sighed as she felt the stinging sensation. Radiate fuck, now she's taken over. She rises to her feet and gasps. Seeing Glenn stumble out of the explosion, he managed to block part of the left side of his face, leaving the right side horribly defeated. His right eye completely vaporized on the eye socket of his exposed skull. I'm guessing we're ignoring the sequel then. Gotcha.
Yep.
Nancy's eyes started to well up with tears as she had held Glenn in arms. She watched as Glenn would come to and clutched, both falling to their knees. Oh God, please no. Glenn, stay with me. Nancy wept as she pulled the burnt giant's face close to her. Finally, I'm fucking free from you, you old hag. She watched the flames dance in front of her. It looked beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Reality made itself known when she heard a baritone war cry coming from the other side. Rhedosaurus was avoiding the flames, staying clear of the fire. Nancy moved Glenn to a safe spot away from the fight and looked for some sort of weapon to use. She noticed a large rectangular billboard and pulled it off the building it came from. When the sword came into full view, its body charged. It didn't anticipate that the finger it threw would combust, or that it would cut off in flames. Nancy felt no remorse for the monster anymore, as she ran and swung the billboard at the burning neck, trying to decapitate the dinosaur, but at least inflict some damage. I knew she was crazy with the voice, but I didn't homicidal and crazy. The billboard was not sharp enough, but did manage to scrape open the wounds on the frail, charcoal-colored neck, causing more blood to spray out of the wounds, lifting the board when she slammed it down on the head, cracking its skull and spewing more blood from the wound. The monster finally dropped onto its stomach and stared at Nancy with hateful eyes before finally breathing its last breath, closing its eyes and it we'd embrace death, as he too welcomed, getting away the hell away from her. The monster finally dropped onto its stomach and stared at Nancy with hateful eyes before finally breathing its last breath, closing its eyes and awaiting death. Nancy stared for a while. Her rage subsided as she started feeling empathetic for Rhedosaurus. It wasn't his fault. It was brought into the modern age against its will. If it was just left alone and never bothered with in the beginning, none of this would have happened. Focusing on her attention on Glenn, she carefully inspects him. Still alive? Ah, fuck. A wave of relief washes over her. Soldiers watching from afar contacted the general and informed him about the events that transpired. Got it. Bring in some air support and pick those two up, and I want medical assistance for Manning. ASAP. Understood. Hey, look at me, I'm the cast from Shin. Yeah, whatever. Yes, sir. Understood. Soldier replied. Don't worry, Glenn. I know they'll fix you. Please, you're all I have left. I don't want to lose you, too. Nancy said softly as she lay waiting for the pickup. Yeah, back. Winner, Nancy Archer. That is truly accurate. And that was Jake.
Yeah,
what are your guys' thoughts?
So overall, again, it's a good. I don't think it's a solid match from Ultimate Ditto. My biggest problem is they decided to they modernized some things in some ways, but they didn't do so in others. Like for instance, they tried to modernize having like Nancy and Colonel Glenn Manning. They tried to having those two connected, and that was cool. However, there were like notes of like some like plot holes. Like really, they're both stone sheets and they're going out. Like the government didn't make like kind of special suits or something. Or the fact that why was Nancy and Archer not affected by the blood? Like or like if the immunizations could have worked for them, why didn't it work for normal people? Or my biggest problem, which is why would Nancy even care about Rhedosaurus and feel bad for it after killing? Like there were like some little plot holes that it needed more depth than what was given.
Yeah.
But still, still a solid match. An interesting way to bring all these older B-movie monsters or characters together.
Well, I thought the match was pretty fun, in which they sent just technically two naked people to go fight a giant dinosaur, even though they were wearing bed sheets. But then, what protection is a bed sheet going to have against a giant dinosaur?
Yeah, an excellent counterpoint. What about you, GVJ?
Well, I really liked it. I liked the history between the two giants. Again, this is kind of what I like about the KWC. Them actually having a story and characters that are A and B or fighting A, B, or C. There's build up to it. So yeah, I thought it was really the best one of the KWC.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, then, thank you all for listening in on this KWCE Reads.
We may resurrect Kaiju X.
Possibly.
We don't know yet.
Possibly. for the next episode. In any case, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next time with number 9. Until then, catch you later, folks.